What's up, guys, and welcome to another Protein Bros podcast. I'm Thatch, former director of the show, but Kyle today actually had to go do a golf tournament, so he better have won for missing this episode. So, guys, he got me in his chair today. That being said, we had the awesome guest, Ehinger, on today, CEO and founder of Glam Girl Bikini Prep. She's also the founder and host of the Prep Life podcast, which is really cool. Guys, we talked about a lot of different things on the show, but what we mainly talked about was the new fit model division, the new standards, how you get into it, and what does the future of that look like. We also talked about her experience. She's done over 30 plus bikini shows in her lifetime. She's also been coached herself while also coaching clients while through that. So if you're looking to join bodybuilding, if you're looking maybe even do bikini from the female perspective, I definitely give this show a listen and hear what she has to say with her 10 years of coaching experience and also competing herself over 30 plus times. Guys, as always, we really appreciate you tuning in. If you like the show, please like, follow, subscribe, share with a friend. We don't pay for any marketing, so if you can do that for us, it'd be a huge help. And let's get to the show.
What is tell us about Prep Life first. I want to hear about, you guys just said how many downloads, unique downloads have you guys had so far you've amassed?
So we've had over 600,000. I think we're at 610.
That's incredible. Yeah. And over 300 episodes.
Yeah. I should have looked before, but I just remember somebody tagged me and was like, or DM'd me and said, I just listened to episode 329. And I just I've been to watch or listen to all of them to get me through my prep.
I love the name alone, just Prep Life, because it is a totally different life, isn't it?
Yeah. Prep Life. Yeah. I wanted to really tell like what we were going to be talking about in the podcast by the name, I wanted people to know. So Prep Life podcast. And at the time when we started, there just weren't very many podcasts out. It was a pain point for me that would talk about prep. There was only one like really good one. And I listened to all the episodes and I was kind of out, it was before even, I think Celeste had just started hers, like the Confessions of a Bikini Pro and all that. But I just felt like it was a pain point in the industry. And I was getting a lot of questions from my clients and I was repeating the same ones. And so really I just did it for that one listener that I wanted to help. We're still ad free and I do it just to help everybody. And, I even joked like I knew my one client, Shelly, would at least listen. Just because, I didn't really care like as far as like how popular it was or whatever, but I just wanted to make sure I could at least help that one person and that would be worth it to me. So I feel like it's been able to grow through just us giving our hearts. Yeah, that's Chris.
How often do you get to use that as a tool with your clients? Like, do they ever ask you questions? You're like, oh, actually on episode like 200, we talked about this.
Yeah, I used to reference it. That's why we started it. Just, we got a lot of questions from our clients repeatedly. And so I was like, okay, we need to just do episodes on this on a podcast. So then we can just refer them back to it. And then it's also like a good way for, future clients to just kind of interview us before it always feels like they like know us before they even talk to us. And they're like, I feel like I know you. And I'm like, it's a cool thing just to kind of, for them to understand like what our philosophy is and what we're all about. And, if it's the right fit, because it isn't always like, it's a very unique,
the client and the approach from the coach have to jive, right?
Yeah.
And we look back at your episodes. I'd ask you this: over 300 episodes, just right off the top of your head, can you please tell me like your Mount Rushmore of episodes, like your top 4 that come to mind that have been your favorite and why?
Yeah, I think Charla Peterson, my client that basically is Miss Wheelchair Olympia. Whoa. I mean, she's made me cry. We've had her on twice. Just her making that accomplishment of getting her pro card as a wheelchair athlete after her injury, just very inspiring. Whitney Jones was another one that I was very inspired by. She had broken her neck, didn't think she would walk. Whitney Weiser, same thing. She got ran over by her ex-boyfriend, crushed her spine, became a pro. Gosh. Just stories like that, really. Those to me are my favorite.
How can they not be? Oh gosh, yeah. It's so impactful, inspiring. Yeah. The old, what's your excuse when people are overcoming such adversity, and then obviously, turning themselves into pros on top of it. That's wild.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. Have you had a guest that surprised you in a way that maybe like you didn't expect, as far as good or bad, where it just went completely off the rails? Because as you know, not every podcast goes the way you think it's going to go.
Well, I was just talking offline that we're a non-explosive podcast, because when I started, my kids were really young, and that was another pain point that was in the industry, is that the podcast that was the content that I wanted to consume had a bunch of cuss words, and I just didn't want to be playing that in the car while I'm driving my kids around when they're young. So we were non-explicit, and I was just giggling because I usually always say it to my guests, like, do not, like use any like cuss words and anything like that. And Zandy Williamson, our head chair of bodybuilding for the NPC and the IFBB, she was the first one to drop a bomb, and
was it a lot of bombs? Was it one bomb?
It wasn't. It was pretty benign, but it was just funny that I just didn't expect that from her coming out of her mouth. So I didn't even think to warn her. So
I want to rewind back now to just how you got your start into bodybuilding, because I know that you guys have been doing this and outlasting a lot of other coaches. Some people think it's a hobby. Some people just do it for a season. But you guys have truly turned it into a full-on lifestyle brand, and have really grown your businesses and your coaching and your influence. And I think it's just so admirable. So tell us where this got started.
Yeah. So my kids were around the ages of 2 and 3. I was 31, and I was a former full ride Division I scholarship athlete for softball, and I'd always worked in the fitness industry. I was a teacher, taught PE, aerobics, all that stuff. And I saw this girl at the gym that, she was my kickboxing instructor, and she brought in like this photo of her in a figure suit, and, I was like, what is that? And she started talking about it, and I didn't realize that you could, mix a competition with fitness. And this was in 2010. So I lived in Indiana, and just that kind of stuff wasn't really well known. Social media.
If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, Fort Wayne.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Indiana?
I am with Indianapolis, so.
Okay, yeah. So, it's a pretty small, like, unhealthy type of situation where there's not much of a network. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And, I was hooked after my first show, and then I helped a client get to stage. So I started in figure, and then I did bikini the next year and the next season. But yeah, I helped my first client in 2012, and, she got nationally qualified, and I just felt like this was kind of, I was so passionate about it. It changed my life. Both my husband and I lost 50 pounds. I quit drinking, just completely changed our lives. Like, he started working out, and we were able to like make healthy food for our kids and all of that. So it just had done so much for me that I just couldn't hide that. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew if they wanted to get to stage, like how to do it. And, I made so many mistakes along the way that I think that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, but it's also definitely the reason why I started the company. Is just, I want people to learn from my mistakes of, I went through some bad prep experiences and things like that, and just not having as much knowledge. So my goal is to really just educate people. I come from a teaching background, and that's kind of, I just wanted to pay it forward because bodybuilding had given me so much that I wanted to give it back to the community.
It feels natural to you to educate others and share your experiences like that.
Yeah. And just to see people shine on stage, yeah.
When you get started, you mentioned the first show was in 2010. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I started prepping in 2010, and then I actually competed in 2011.
What was your first show?
It was the Fort Wayne. It was the Midwestern states. So I ended up being a promoter of that later, but it's no longer in existence. So
was it an NPC show, or was it?
Yeah.
Because of the natural federations, there was a lot back then, especially, right? There was a handful you could compete in, but NPC is NPC,
Yeah.
And so that's very cool. You started with NPC right off the bat.
Yeah, it was the one that girl had shown me. It was a local one, and it was in July, and yeah.
Love it. What was the? Go ahead. Thad.
I was gonna say, what drew you to figure? Like, obviously, you have this history in bikini, and now you're doing fit model. But on the first show, why were you like figure?
Well, that girl had done figure. I didn't even know bikini existed, because if you know the history of bikini, it just came out in 2010.
It was just the year prior.
Yeah.
That and physique, right?
They didn't have bikini in 2010 in Fort Wayne in that show. And so when I competed in figure, I actually saw the 2 bikini girls, and it was like the first time they had it at that show. And I was like, they look like they're having a lot more fun. So
and back then, bikini looked a lot different.
Yes. It got a lot of it got trashed. I mean, especially in Indiana, it's a very conservative state. And our chairman, he was very much like, he would make you go backstage and like get your suit inspected. And one girl got kicked off the stage because her suit was like too small. And they did not want it to be like a, I don't know, Hawaiian tropic type of thing.
Totally.
Which I'm glad that he, made sure that standard was there, that it was very respectful. That was, something that we have to work hard for as bikini. Now it's evolved into something else. And now I think probably Fit Model is getting a little bit of like what bikini first did, but it's crazy how much it's changed. Like the perception of, people thought, oh, this is a category that people don't have to work out for. Or,
Luke, do me a favor. Find me some put like NBC bikini standards over the years in Google and find us like a picture of just like what, the bikini Olympian from 2011, for example, to the one that was in 2021. And it's just like wild.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I love that like you're saying this fit model category is kind of getting back to the roots of what bikini started as, which is, I would say, a healthier look.
Yeah, it's the OG of the bikini world. And I just, I've done 37 some odd shows. And, so 2009, I guess they had one.
And even like from 2017 to now, I mean, totally different from 2017 to now, I would say. Even.
Yeah.
Just getting crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited about the Fit Model coming out just because I do feel like I am the OG of bikini. I started out with the stallion pose, and very similar to the physique that they're looking for in Fit Model is what was the standard back then when I started competing in bikini. So, yeah, recently my feedback just they keep telling me like more muscle in bikini. So I'm excited for this.
When it comes to that first prep though, 2011, 10 to 11.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was some of those common mistakes that you talked about when you would be sharing with others? Is it your first time following a diet to that level of stringentness, if you will? Yeah,
it was. And I mean, there's so many lessons from that prep that I would tell people. Number one is don't eat tilapia and asparagus for every single meal. That was my diet, was just even for breakfast, it was, and it didn't change the entire prep. It was, and the coach never asked for check-ins or anything. I mean, I was going to ask if you did your own diet or did you hire a coach? No, I hired a dietitian because I couldn't find anybody. It was very hard. I had to research somebody, and she did figure in like a different organization, but she just sent me this packet, like, here, follow this for 12 weeks. And it was like 90 minutes of cardio, no check-ins. And basically like the judge at the end of that show pulled me aside and he's like, next time you got to eat. I mean, I was very emaciated, and the next day I gained like 15 pounds. Didn't know about a reverse diet. Wasn't told about any of like what I was going to go through when that show was over and how to deal with that. So that's like a big one, but also just not a stringent meal plan. Now I do macros and have a lot more food freedom and a better relationship with food. So I would say, so that was when I was doing bikini, but I don't think I even have the figure ones are from a long time ago, but that was when my husband and I, that was our before we started the lifestyle. Wow. Yeah. Incredible, man. I mean, just unbelievable transformation. And obviously you've kept it off. Thank you. Which is also incredible. You guys getting in. So this is like a fun topic. I feel like so much of bodybuilding, there's this level of professionalism. This is all like my personal views. Okay. So I'll make that clear. But this has all just been my own experiences because I've worked over 100 bodybuilding shows in my life at different events. I've never competed personally, but I've watched it so much that I feel like I could judge pretty well. Mm-hmm. And there's so many variables that go into when in such a subjective sport, it opens itself up, sadly, for the pros and cons. There's obviously pros and cons to all of this, but
it opens itself up to all this subjectivity where egos get involved, and it can really, like, I feel like, what I feel like Glam Girl does so well is that you guys champion each other, even if you're competing against each other. And like, there's no room for like being sour or, hating on another, if, for the lack of a better phrase there, but just like celebrating each other's success. And what I see on social media and people like in the comment section cheering each other on more so than the era that I felt like I grew up in, where it felt like everybody was like, just always had like, they look good, but always something to say, right? There was always like a little subtle jab in there. And one of my favorite jabs that I get the most often is when someone decides to start coaching. So when you decided to start coaching in 2012, is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But did you get any, if you will, haters coming out of the woodwork of like, oh, you're already coaching, you already think you're a coach because you've done a couple shows, or, you know what I'm saying? There's always like this, when is it okay? Like, when am I allowed to have permission to start coaching others, right? Like, but the amount of coaches that come out of the woodwork that have negative things to say about competitors who do well, deciding to also help out a friend who saw them in their journey and say, hey, you know what, I'll coach you too. And like, oh, they think they're a coach now? And it's like, when do I get when am I allowed? You know what I mean? Because there's no degree in it yet. You know what I mean? In that scenario.
Sure.
So it's just funny how, the amount of hatred that I see online, or, I hear about. We used to just hear all in the store, working the counter,
sure.
like, oh, you see so-and-so starting a coach? Can you believe that?
Yeah. I competed one year. And yeah. Yeah.
So did you deal with any of that?
So I think because the person actually just asked me to help her, I had no expectations of how well I would do it. And I made sure that was clear for her. I do have a major in, I have a minor in physiological sciences, and then my background's physical education. I have, personal training degree and all that stuff. And so, I do have some of the credentials, but, I told her, I said, this will be a growing experience for both of us. And that's kind of how I've always approached it, is just like under promise, over deliver type of thing, and let the results show. I'm not a big, usually people come to me or somebody will refer me because they just feel like they've been helped so well. I'm very detail oriented. I'm very disciplined with just, I look at every fine detail, and I meet with people in person, or I talk with them on the phone and have conversations outside of just, an email. And I feel like the level of communication can be my strength, just because I'll meet with those people, once a week doing their body fat, or
I'd say most coaches are pretty transactional, right? And so it sounds like you really care about every client. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just get to know their life and their career, what interests them, their family. And we make every plan. It's the unicorn prep for a reason. It's, you're unique, and you need something that's catered to exactly what's going to fit with your life, because everyone has different needs and different time restraints and commitments. And so one competitor can get to stage successfully, and another one can too, but they probably got there in a way different way, because I, completely designs it to fit their life.
Completely unique to the client.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When did the unicorn start being a part of your guys' business model?
Yeah.
You guys started using that as the mascot.
Well, actually, so I'd been a teacher, and so I was in a salary position. I was just kind of doing this on the side as a passion project. It wasn't my main gig. And then, I was working a salary job. I was never just dive deep into the entrepreneurial world and, give up the salary position. So at the time, my mom had gotten diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was a series of a bunch of just different sad things in life where you just kind of think, oh, my parents are going to be around forever. It just kind of hit me we need to live each day to the fullest and all that. And, it was a week that I was super sad about everything. And Von Mar called me, and they're like, is this Amy Ehinger? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, we just want to tell you that you won a giant inflatable unicorn. And I was like, that's so random, The
department store, Von Mar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know, I didn't even remember signing up for it or anything. my daughter thought it was the coolest thing because she was really young. And she like floated that thing to the sunset before it popped, but she called it Bella. And so I just thought it was a good symbol because after that, I wanted to put breath into myself, and I wanted to put in my notice, and I didn't know what I was going to really do, but I came up with the name Glam Girl Bikini, and I thought, you know what? Most prep teams don't have a mascot. I'm like, I need a mascot. And this unicorn is like, mythical, magical creature. Everybody's kind of like chasing that unicorn prep, but they can never get like the right fit. And so I just thought it was perfect and beautiful. And so Bella, she's our mascot, and that's from that whole situation because it's kind of like a symbol of me moving out of my comfort zone and living each day to its fullest.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
I wish we had a way to patch up Bella's original inflatable so you still had it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a picture of my daughter like hugging it. And,
How big was this unicorn?
It was huge. Yeah.
Was it like a pool float?
Yeah.
A pool floaty?
Yeah.
Oh, is that one where like the neck and head come out, but you can like lay on the raft part?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
It's funny.
Yeah, my company is 8 years old, so yeah, it was like 8 years ago when unicorns I think were like super popular.
Yeah, there was like big there was like a big giraffe or like a big like swan.
Yep.
Yep. That was fun, man. What are the name of that brand? Do you know what I'm talking about, Thatcher? You just were too young, man. You just don't even know. There was this brand of like they had a bunch of different inflatables that you could pick from, but
that's
great.
Having
a massive one. Yeah. So anyways, unicorn has been the mascot. Bella's her name.
Yeah.
What do you guys do moving forward? How do you guys incorporate that into the business?
Yeah, it's on all of our logos. I think like I said, there's not many prep teams that have like a mascot. They just have a brand name, and I just wanted a mascot because we're a team, and every team has a mascot.
Totally.
So why don't prep teams have a mascot? I don't know of any other ones that do.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, Amy, but you guys are, your team is all over the world. So it's like, how can we make everybody feel communal? How can we make everybody come together and have one thing in common? And so it's just like giving it something that represents the team, I think is important.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about it before, it's so much about just celebrating the journey of the person next to you that I think people have a misconception, at least in the women's side in divisions. It's like they think it's very catty and like, cutthroat, but we all support each other, and there's so much work that goes into this that it's like you just want to celebrate each other. And we as a team have like a group chat, and we try to help each other. And even though we're all around the world, kind of bringing everybody into the community, like people fly from all over. I have people come from Alaska, like to our team shows, and just to be around the group. And, it's a way to get like-minded women that maybe are in isolated places like myself. Like I was craving that in Indiana, and I didn't have that community. So it's nice when you have a team of other like-minded women that can kind of celebrate you too and like help you out and feel like you're not alone in the journey, because it can be a very lone wolf kind of sport.
Especially. Yeah. I mean, especially, there's so many people that have, support as far as in their home. And there's so many that get into it because they don't, right? Yeah. Usually it's because of a breakup or because of a divorce that made them find the sport because they had let themselves go for so long that this was their way of pouring into themselves. And so finding that community, such an important piece of it. And it's to keep you from going into those like really negative spaces where you would get, catty, if you will, because I think that if anybody finds the sport of bodybuilding, they're gonna hear all of those voices in the beginning because it's also your own insecurities that you're hearing at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You haven't outworked those negative voices in your own head. And so they're amplified a little louder. And this is, again, my personal opinion, but they're amplified a little louder in the beginning because you're thinking, what if they're right?
Yeah. And as you go through the prep journey, it's like everything's so new to you too. And it's so many different behavioral changes and things like that. And your loved ones and your friends, they're not used to this version of you, even though you're leveling yourself up. And so it becomes like it's a transition, it takes some time to kind of get used to that. And it's better when you have other people that have done other shows and like, you can kind of like bounce ideas off of, like, oh, you know, like when we're doing this family function, like what are some good ideas of how I can like navigate this holiday or whatever it is, you know.
You've done this for 8 years now. You've been coaching athletes specifically, and also you do Gen Pop as well.
I particularly just focus on competitors. I think about it like if you're going to a general practitioner, doctor, you know, for some general medicine, I think of bodybuilding as like similar to like if you have a heart condition, you're not going to go to your general practitioner. You're going to go to your cardiologist, right?
Specialized. Yeah.
So I want to be niche and specific. And so when I started Glam Girl, that's when I wanted to just only focus on competitors, because I feel like the more reps you get, the more of an expert and specialization, the more you kind of try to do even just all the categories. I used to coach a little bit of men's physique before starting my company. And first of all, I decided I just want to be only female owned and operated, but I also want to specifically specialize in female issues because the female body is so unique. And you know, specifically honing in on a category, I just become better and better because I get hundreds of people doing that same goal. And then I have like more data, and just to me, like I would rather
be the master
do
of one
something
versus
really
the master
well.
of none.
Yeah, exactly.
And I apologize, really, I misspoke. I said you've been coached for 8 years. Your business has been, Glam Girl's been around for 8 years.
Right.
You've been coaching much longer.
Yeah. So I've been coaching since 2012. So yeah, over a decade.
And so where I want to get really specific with you is, you know, going from coaching in 2012 to now, I can't express this enough. Like, it is very rare to have someone who's been coaching that long and sticking around and staying in the same community. Unfortunately, I've seen so many come and go, and I think it's because of how they treated their clients. You know, eventually those clients, they all talk, and eventually if you're not doing the right things, or if you're not really pouring into your clients, like they will tell you that they don't like it and they will go elsewhere. And I've seen some people like win team awards and have the most people you've ever seen compete under one name at a show, you know, and they're all wearing like matching shirts or matching robes or whatever it may be. And then they're just not around anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I know I've made my own inferences as to why that is as far as the care of the clients, but what are some of the biggest like don'ts that you've found in the industry where it's like, maybe you've tried, you said you've made these mistakes and you've learned from them. What could you offer out to somebody who is just getting started with coaching clients as to like really the big don'ts?
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, I think it's really important that you're upfront right away on that first phone call. I find that, you know, getting those conversations, like the expectations, what I'm expecting from, you know, based on their pictures and their application and everything they've got going on and their goal, I want to find out on that first phone call if I'm a good fit for you and you're a good fit for me. And, you know, because I'm a judge in the NPC, I've been doing this for a long time. I kind of know, like you were saying, when you watch a bunch of shows, you kind of know what's getting awarded and all these things. And if like the potential client has like the wrong timeline, or I'm not here to just take your money, you know? And I think that's the biggest mistake that coaches make, is that they just will take anyone. For one thing, I think just having hundreds of clients is irresponsible because you can't give them the amount of time and attention they need. So I have a certain roster number that I'm going to have. And once I've hit that, you know, I'll tell people that they can be on a waiting list for me. But, you know, my number one priority is to service my clients to the best of my ability right now. And so, you know, I can put you on a waiting list, or I can set you up with, like, I can make a recommendation of somebody that will do a good job for you. But that, and just them, like if they say, you know, I want to be on stage in 6 months and they have 80 pounds to lose, everyone can get on stage, just maybe not in that time frame. And so that's another one that I think a lot of people, you know, you could do that maybe, but the method that you're going to do it, that person's not going to maintain that lifestyle. It's going to be a crash, and they're going to get burnt out, or they're going to binge. And so I think just putting a realistic timeline that you can make it a lifestyle, and that it's realistic and you can be extremely competitive. You know, most of my clients, they are going to get nationally qualified, I'm going to tell them, like, this is what you need to do to be in the top 5. We don't know who's going to show up, but this is the amount of time it's going to take. I've done this with so many different females, and I know, like, what your height, what your weight, like, all of that. So they need to understand that, and just having those realistic expectations of what it's going to take to get to stage. I think these coaches that try to do it too fast, they do so many extreme measures that it just either compromises that athlete's health or just burns them out in the sport, and they never want to do it again because it's such a negative experience. I mean, there's a reason why I have clients for 10 years and they've referred me to, I can't even tell you, like, you know, work with my coach. Like, I know everything about their lives, and that's what I like. You know, I want to know those things about their life, and I want to be able to have a conversation. You know, I'm not just going to email somebody and I'm going to send them a video if I can't talk to them on the phone, you know?
I feel like if I could surmise that response, it was everything that you mentioned, everything that you said, there was long-term thought into the how of why you did what you did.
Yeah.
And because you really looked at it as like, I'm going to be doing this for a long time. So I want to make sure that, you know, you really cared about not just the client, but also just the reputation of the brand Glam Girl, as well as just your own personal one before Glam Girl began. And it came through in like everything that you had mentioned, everything that you had said. Like, I'm not here to make the most money as fast as I possibly can. I'm here to make sure that I, you know, build winners and people that are going to have lasting results and, you know, make it into a true lifestyle versus the crash and the binging like you're talking about.
Yeah. It's keeper of few is ruler of many. And in my opinion, you really need to make sure whatever you do it 100%. I'm just that kind of person. I'm going to put everything into that. And so I'm not going to take on things that I can't handle. And so I'm not going to take 180 clients because I will not be able to give you the attention that you deserve. And you deserve a lot. And this is a very expensive sport. It takes a lot of time. And so if someone's just going to spend like 5 minutes a week on just sending you a quick email, you have to read into the words. Like, that's not okay. I know that from myself as an athlete. I don't want that. And so that's what's helped me understand like what the athletes want, because I also walk the walk and hire the coaches, and I know what it feels like on their end.
I've never competed before myself, but I actually thought about it and hired a coach. And my first coach was kind of like how you just talked about. It was like there was no phone call. I didn't have his phone number. It was email stuff. And there was just so much of this where I was like, I feel lost. Like, what about this or what about that? And I'd email him, and I'd get maybe an answer in the next week's email. Oh, and it was just like one of those things where it's like, you know, at that time in my life, I kind of was like, all right, I'm just going to give up on this. And I walked away. And I can see how you could turn and burn that. But also hearing that, I think to myself, it's like, oh, I'd want that, right? That personal connection. Like, you're putting themselves in their shoes, or you're going in their shoes, where you're just like watching their life completely. And that's awesome. That's really special, because I've seen the opposite firsthand. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make you want to like do it almost.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had a lot of coaches in the industry, so it's been nice to just learn those lessons as an athlete, like what that feels like on their end. You know, my first coach that gave me a biweekly phone call, I'm like, wow, we got so much accomplished in this 30 minutes that I don't think I could have expressed in an email response back. And that just made me feel special. And I'm like, I want that for other people too.
You guys are both looking at me like as if I just got a question. Queued up.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you know, let's say, you know, someone's interested to work with Glam Girl, right? Yeah. And it's just like, you know, you're both talking to each other, trying to figure out if you're both a great fit. What does that look like for you? How do you evaluate that process? You know, how do you help them understand that you're a great fit for them and vice versa? Yeah.
So we have to establish the goal, but because it is not just like a skinny contest or, you know, you don't necessarily, you have to fit the criteria, right? Mm-hmm. So I need a photo front, side, and back before we even do the phone call. I need an intake form that's very detailed. So they have an application they have to fill out before we set up that phone call. So I can kind of look at the data, look at what their height, their weight, their age, like current caloric intake is a big one too, because if you're coming to me with like on 1,200 calories and doing 2 hours of cardio, and, you know, we don't have much to pull from. Yeah. So I need to understand, like, you know, do we need a reverse diet? Where is your metabolism? All that stuff. So yeah, just over the years, I've, if it's a weight loss goal, we're going to average about a pound a week or a quarter of an inch in an area, whether that's waist, hips, or thighs. And we just kind of reverse engineer the goal and then allow like a little bit of buffer time. So if they need to grow, then that's a whole nother story. It's just, it depends. Yeah. And I think the best, I hate that answer, but I love it too, because it's like, you're not really a good coach if you have a definitive answer, I think, to something like that.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
That's all unique to the client.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on PEDs in the sport of specifically bikini in that class?
Yeah. So, I mean, the pro that I've turned pro as a bikini competitor, she was a natural athlete. That was in 2018. The sport's changed quite a bit since then. We've learned a lot of information, and it's always evolving. The sport's getting bigger, harder, more conditioned. So I do feel like you need to pick all the low-hanging fruit first. So do all of the things nutritionally with their lifestyle, their sleep, their recovery, their stress, nutrition. All that needs to be handled first. Yeah. For some athletes, that might be 2 years where we can just go on that and see great progress. And, depending on their genetics, especially. And so from there, if they're at a point where that aligns with something that they want, I have a hormone specialist that she, does the blood work, has a doctor analyze it. She's a fitness liaison with a hormone clinic. They have a compounding pharmacy and all that. So if the doctor prescribes something or sees like a deficiency, they go over all that blood work, but they invite me on the call too. So I've learned a lot throughout the years just of like looking at clients' blood work with the fitness liaison, going over it. I love that she makes it a collaboration so that I can do the lifestyle things that come out of that blood work. And then if the athlete chooses, if it's right for their goals and what they want, then in that case, if they want to have it prescribed, then we're not doing anything that's out of the scope of practice. And I'm, allowing them to make that decision and doing it in a healthy way that won't compromise their health. That's really important for me. I think that's the biggest thing with coaching is they don't understand that you have a lot of responsibility for someone's health when you are guiding somebody and an athlete, and that's paramount for I take that responsibility very seriously.
Yeah. I love the first thing you mentioned, which is just the 2 years of, potentially up to 2 years of that low hanging fruit right. Of just, why would we pull these other levers over here if we haven't done these, these kind of foundational aspects of how to treat yourself on a day-to-day basis. If your goal is to compete at a high level, there's no drug out there that's going to create better habits or better patterns for you. Yeah. And so I love that you make that the foundation. And that's just going back to the first kind of point we've already made, but it's so easy to throw more and more, drugs at something and increase the medicine cabinet, if you will, versus hey, we got to really just look at your shortcomings on your habits and your patterns and fix those things first. And again, it's just a long-term approach to how everything that you've been doing. And so it's just no surprise that you've been doing great long-term as far as the business is concerned.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is kind of where Fit Model steps in, where girls are looking at, bikini girls on the pro stage of the Olympia, and they're like, well, maybe I don't want to take that step forward. Do you think that's kind of now the NPC's route for hey, if you don't want to do that, you can be in this division, or is it just a whole different look?
Yeah, I think Tyler Mannion introduced a couple of different things this past year to address some of those things. So first of all, the economy, the shows were down, way down last year. And I don't know if that's a mixture of two different things. My guess is that, the cost of living is a little bit higher. I mean, look at the price of eggs. And then you look at also the amount of drugs that it takes to get that look. There's a huge price tag on that, right? And then people are falling out of the sport because, like you said, they're not looking for those lifestyle things. They're going straight to that as the protocol, and they're doing way too much. I mean, some of these pros look so much older in their face, and they're young females, and they look like they have that Joker face there in their their jawline. And I just think that he is wanting to start promoting the natural side of things for pros. We just saw in Kansas City last weekend the second ever pro drug tested bikini event. So there were checks awarded. And then I think previously, like it was 2 weeks before that in Las Vegas. So now there's two people, well, in addition to Lana Dunbar, who won the Ben Weider last fall. So now there's 3 people qualified for the Ben Weider. So I think I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I think he's trying to develop the natural drug tested side of bikini. So eventually that Ben Weider is going to be kind of like their Olympia.
Yeah.
So now drug tested pros have more opportunities than just the Ben Weider to earn money and then qualify for something bigger. And so that's the first piece. So he introduced a lot more natural shows for this past year. So, and just introduced the second ever pro qualifier in Pittsburgh. It was the first one. So now there's 2 chances of getting a pro card in the NPC as a drug tested athlete. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece, I think he introduced Fit Model because it's an easier entrance point, I guess you would say.
Lower barrier of entry.
Yeah, yeah, not easier because those athletes work really hard. It still takes a lot of muscle, a lot of work, a lot of discipline. But I think with the suits being, you start with a base suit and bikini at probably $600-$700 with the crystallization and the customization and the connectors. So the Fit Model suit is not allowed to have any bling, not allowed to have connectors. You can get one for $100 or less, and it's required to be plain. So that's what it was when you showed that picture of me in 2013. I mean, that's all those bikinis were. It was just, there were no stones on them at all, and not really connectors either. So it's making it more affordable to go into Fit Model in terms of that piece, but also just from like the drug standpoint and all of that. I would say that, that's not required.
Yeah.
Kind of like how bikini was before.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to do that.
Recently, we've seen a lot of people in the last year or so. I feel like GLP-1s have really, really skyrocketed in popularity. How many of your athletes are using things like GLP-1s versus a classic, stack that would be, you could use, let's see here. I'm just like drawing a blank all of a sudden, but
yeah,
it'd be like, some clenbuterol maybe, Anavar. Yeah, some Anavar. I'm just trying to think of some classics that, people, if they're going to start using some PEDs, those were usually the people that would be the common denominator that people would grab first. Are people using these GLP-1s, you feel like, more so, or is that not hit the bodybuilding world?
I think certain teams are really utilizing them from the buzz and chatter that I've heard. So there's a couple of things with those. So I would say tirzepatide or trizepatide, however you want to pronounce that. Mm-hmm. That one is anti-inflammatory. So I do think that there's a lot of benefits for especially females in perimenopause and menopause, just because with the 0 to low estrogen, they get a lot of inflammation. So microdosing trizepatide, I think, is okay. Not necessarily even using it as the appetite suppressant side of things. The very few people that I know that it was prescribed by their doctor, maybe because of like blood sugar issues or things like that, with the semaglutide, I've just noticed like rapid heart rates and digestion problems. I really don't think that the semaglutide is a great choice. Whereas I would say like the tirzepatide, if your doctor prescribes it, especially if you have like autoimmune disease, it can really help with anti-inflammatory type of situation. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, no, I'm just wondering if it's if it's crossing over into the bodybuilding world as well, just because
for sure.
Back in the day there was the ECA stacks of ephedrocaffeine and aspirin. I mean, a lot of people are hopping on Clen and Anavar and the list goes on. But just wondering if these are much more accessible than those other drugs, and from usually, I would say, more reputable sources.
Yeah.
Right? Where a doctor, but you can go see at a clinic, can prescribe it to you versus finding it off of a random foreign site, or your coach is finding it for you and so forth. And it's just, people want to be healthy. You clearly make that paramount to how you treat your clients, and so just wondering how that's affecting things.
Yeah, just making sure that you're going through your doctor to do it, and it's based off of the blood work. Like I said, we use the hormone clinic, and I've seen that. I've seen the prescription of oxandrolone, which is Anavar, but at a very low level where it's not going to virilize females. But Anavar is like not even close to what some of those other people are using. Some crazy stuff on women now, just like Winstrol and Primobolan, all these like crazy drugs that you wouldn't have
stuff
seen.
You can't come back from, as far as how it changes you.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. And I know the clinic that I work with, they do not condone clenbuterol. They actually recommend albuterol, since clenbuterol is more of a horse. It's prescribed by veterinarians for horses.
Bronchial dilator, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is what ECA was. Helps you get more oxygen in.
Yeah. So there's been some good studies on albuterol, and if again you're prescribed it through the hormone clinic, I don't see any issue with it in terms of it helping you, like as a quote unquote fat burner. But again, you need to be under the supervision of a doctor for that kind of stuff.
Transitioning to more of like the natural side of things and supplements. Obviously, we own supplement stores.
Yeah.
Such a like a trend, I think, that has played out in so many different avenues and ways. I think that as you were coming into the sport, I would think was the peak of the next, like, let's say 3 or 4 years, from 2012 to 2016, I would say were the peak years of Instagram athletes, in the sense of, now it's like, it wasn't about how many shows you won, it was how many followers do you have. And Paige Hathaway was the first athlete that I remember that got third in an Oklahoma local show, but was like the face of Shreds supplements on Instagram. And before that, like Jamie Eason, remember her from bodybuilding.com?
Yeah, I do.
Like, Jamie was the queen of fitness, man, and she was she's beautiful. She had a beautiful body. She worked really hard. She's a mother. All these things to be proud of, but like, she also competed on a very high level. And so it was crazy to see kind of this transcendence of athletes who, it really mattered how you placed in shows, to where now it's like you can just live the lifestyle, post a lot on social media, and become, very influential, have a high income potential without ever competing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so what I want to bring attention to is, I think that the sport has evolved and the industry has evolved, where there are so many of those saturated fitness influencers, if you will, that aren't competing or haven't competed, but just live the lifestyle or post the lifestyle, if you will. And they're looking for supplement sponsorships. And I think that back in that era that we were talking about, it was very much like part of you making it as an athlete would be to have a supplement sponsorship. Yeah. Everybody was looking for that sponsored by in their bio. Yeah. And brands started to just give them away like it was water. You know what I mean? It was crazy. I used to get, I never once competed, but I was getting DMs from random bots. I'm sure there were bots, but just from random brands being like, hey, we love you to be an ambassador. Like, we'll send you a care package, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what the heck is going on, dude? And so now it seems like it's few and far between. You're not seeing nearly as many supplement brands, I think, giving these sponsorships out. I think the ambassador term has really improved, or has really, gained traction. They're not so quick to give away stuff. It's a lot more of like we'll give you a discount. Does that make sense? Yeah,
totally. It's an easy way to market if you're just giving discount codes to whoever wants to be an ambassador. And it's an easy way for that company to have 1 million people just kind of promoting their brands.
It feels so cheap, and though, because of it,
it really does.
And so because of that, I feel like that ship sailed for the most part to me, where it's like, people aren't going to be so quick to post about your product if you're giving them 15% off, or even if you're giving 30% off, or whatever it may be. Those prices are obviously like inflated artificially on their website anyway. Like no one's really paying full price, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you feel like, especially with your athletes, how have you helped kind of advise people on your team as far as partnering with brands? And what brands do you feel like are doing a great job at it?
Well, I am biased about First Form because I've been a sponsored athlete for quite a long time with them, but I also just love the company and the ethics and everything that they're all about and how they get things third party tested. And I use them on my body. And so I feel like I can make recommendations to my athletes on what is good for them and things like that. So I definitely am more partial to First Form because I really love that company.
Well, is there other brands maybe that you haven't had a good experience with?
I mean, I think you have to kiss a lot of frogs, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's been some that you just don't know like what's in them, or maybe they're not efficaciously dosed. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but
you can throw them.
What if like it was like, have you ever had a client that was using, like maybe they were sponsored by a brand and you were like, well, those supplements maybe are blah, blah, blah labs, right? And they just weren't seeing the results because they weren't maybe it wasn't helping them the way they thought. Have you ever had to have like that conversation with a client?
Yeah. So I don't like, for me, supplements, the baseline is the nutrition and, it's a pyramid, and so like the top part, like that final piece, and in my world, that's actually really important. Those like little details, like once you get the base of your nutrition, your habits, like then filling in those nutritional gaps is very important for bodybuilders in our case, because they are doing all the things. So those little details will matter. So I guess what I'm getting at is if somebody asks me about a certain brand that I'm not familiar with, it's hard for me to speak on,
quality.
Like, I don't know what those ingredients are. I don't know what that's going to do because, I have experience with this brand and what it does for my body, and I know exactly what's in it. And so I have a hard time like recommending it, if that makes sense to those.
Well, you're honest, you're true to yourself and you're not going to lie to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, you're not going to recommend something you wouldn't use yourself.
Take myself. Yeah, exactly.
Understandable.
Yeah.
As far as how like we're talking about the evolution of the sport and, this fit model category, how, as far as the industry, the supplement game, how that is evolving and how I feel like drugs are becoming more easy to come by with telehealth being legal now. It's like, you can go through a clinic and get what you need. And I think this is all good for the sport. And I think the most important thing I want to make sure I make clear is that like what I've noticed, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is just the sport seemingly like wanting to be healthier, wanting to, we've had some sad deaths in bodybuilding that, people did not at all foresee. And it seems like, that it's trending towards trying to be healthier, trying to be smarter. And I feel like that's what we've seen in the form of what's possible as far as with these clinics and so forth. Is that what you're noticing on your end as well?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just, the way that you function as a coach, and you need to do your homework. If you're an athlete and you're trying to hire somebody, you need to figure out like what their philosophies are. Like, do they cut water? Do they have you do prescription diuretics? Like, all those things are really important to educate yourself. Not to say that, with those deaths, it's very, very sad that unfortunately people like myself will think, like, I don't know anything about this sport right now, so I'm going to trust, and I'm just going to follow this to the letter of everything they tell me to do because they're the authority. They know more than me. There's so much more information out there now that you can educate. And, when I started the sport, there just wasn't quite the development of podcasts and YouTube and ChatGPT, all these different things, where I think just doing your homework and making sure that I think it's okay as an athlete to ask those questions. Like, you're having me do this protocol. Can you just explain your philosophy to me? And if they're really like, no, you just follow it because I told you to, that's not okay. I mean, my
It's
athletes
wild that
need
it
to
still
know.
happens. Yeah, it's wild it still happens.
And they shame you for asking questions, and I don't think that's okay. That's when you move on.
Yeah, that's the coach that's
You have the
taking it
option.
personal somehow. Like,
Yeah.
I've simply wanted to know the why behind it so I can value it better. But
Yeah.
the amount of coaches that take that personal is wild to me.
Yeah, educating them, it gives buy-in to the athlete too, and just giving them options too, because there's more than one way to do a prep. You know, like if someone's super busy and they just can't do a lot of cardio, then, you know, like ask them for that buy-in. Like, you know, we can get the deficit either way. Do you want to do it going low calorie then, because you can't do as much movement? You know, you can do it either way. If you want more food, we can, and you have time, we can do more movement, you know? So I think just like having those conversations, and you need to be able to hire a coach that will be okay with that. And if they're not, then that's probably not a good fit.
You've obviously been an athlete too for this entirety of your coaching career. You started competing in 2011. I know you've had several top 5 finishes over your career, but now you're transitioning into the fit model category, right? Class, if you will.
That's very new. So yeah, that's what I'm aspiring to do. I feel like it fits my physique the best. When it came out, it's like, that's it. But I also really am excited about that for the sport when it comes to coaching clients, just because I've had a lot of people that got really discouraged with bikini, couldn't get big enough like myself, with that level that it is at currently. And so I've just noticed that people that were my clients for a long, long time, you know, reaching back out, getting remotivated and feeling like, oh my gosh, there's a place for me in the sport. And I can definitely relate to that too, because I feel like this is a great opportunity for clients as well.
You have this experience in bikini and doing that for so many times, so many years. When you think about this fit model category, what is going to be like the drastic changes between that and bikini, like for our listeners that aren't as familiar?
Yeah. So, you know, you're still going to have the round shoulders, the narrow waist, the hourglass. You're going to have the same back pose. The front pose is going to be different. The suits are going to be different. There's more coverage on the suits. We mentioned like no crystals, no connectors, the stallion front pose. So the old school bikini pose. But I think just more than anything, it allows females to kind of be a little bit, I don't want to say the word healthy, because you can be healthy and do a bikini competition and do very well, and if you do it the right way. But I do think it just allows for a more attainable look where they probably enjoy that look more, just walking around in their body. I think that's probably the biggest shift.
Yeah, it makes it more approachable, makes it more lifestyle focused versus, I can imagine. I mean, we've watched people go through some really grueling, preps and in the years we've spent in the stores. And so I'm just excited that, again, like you're saying, it's going to make the sport more approachable and make the lifestyle not feel so extreme.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, I know Tyler has talked a lot about this on social media, but just like from a road to pro for people who maybe are already doing bikini or want to get into it, right?
Yeah.
If they've done a bikini show and they qualify at a regional, they can go right to a national with fit model. Is that right? Or
Yes. So they just kind of announced that if you've done a bikini competition last year, I know for sure, it might be even 2023, I can't recall. But if you've done a bikini competition, then you can jump right into a national show. You do not have to get regionally qualified. So there were a lot of questions around that, but that's for sure. You do not have to do a regional show to qualify, because in the past it's always been you have to get top 2 in the open.
Yep.
And then as a masters competitor, they just think we're so old that if you just compete, you're qualified in masters, which is so sad. But yeah, you just have to have had competed last year in bikini to do a national show.
Have they stated when they're going to bring it to the Olympian stage?
I believe in 2026 is when the first pro shows are going to happen. So I don't know if they'll actually do it at the Olympia in 2027. If we kind of look at what wellness did, all these fit models will have to compete as pros next year,
right,
and qualify for the Olympia. So it will that might be that's a question mark in my mind. They have definitely not announced it, but I know for sure the pro shows will be next year in 2026 for Fit Model.
Now, assuming we're going to win our pro card, right? IFBB Pro Amy. Is that something you want to do? Would you keep going further after that, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would love that. I just turned 45 this year. So, my goal is to do Masters Nationals. That's the only one that offers a pro card in Fit Model 45 right now. So
You mentioned also that you have a coach, and so I want to make it very clear for, especially for our younger audience that is maybe thinking about getting into competing. It's like all the best coaches know that they need a coach as well. Tell us about yours.
Yeah. So my coach is Cash, and he's a great guy. He coaches like Ashlyn Little and Jazzy. He's very high level. I'm a person that I really just need the tough love, you know. I sometimes coaches can be the worst clients, but I try my best to just kind of like allow him to have the reins. He does things a lot different than any coach that I've ever had. So this will be a new experience for me, like in general. But yeah, I've done 37 shows, so I've competed in multiple different countries, and yeah, I think this is going to be a totally different prep in so many different ways.
Tell us something about some of those differences from Cash. What have you noticing from his coaching style that you're not familiar with? Because obviously, 37 shows, you've had a plethora of different people you've worked with, and also just fun to hear that, like, you know, because I remember, you know, your first show, you're like, you know, I was just somebody that was like, I'm just going to follow and let the professional guide me.
Yeah,
and it's like having to get back into that spirit's got to be fun when you've coached so many others.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be kind of a cool experience to just have somebody tell me like, all right, you're ready. So in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we need to pick a show. And so I'm kind of looking forward to it, but at the same time, kind of scared.
Yeah, it's a fun new approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never thought of that. That's great. You know, we always ask all of our guests all the same exact question at the end of this podcast. And it's always more fun when you talk to somebody who's in bodybuilding. And that is, you know, there's cheat meals, of course, but in Kansas City, we were known as a barbecue town. And I just want to know, when people come in town to visit, et cetera, where is the barbecue spot that you have to bring everybody? Q39? Yeah. I mean, hell yeah. That's like almost, I mean, rightfully so, probably the most popular answer. Luke, would you agree with that? Probably our most popular answer. And I would I can't even disagree.
No, Gates, no.
You don't like Jack Stack?
No, I don't know. I just meant like, is that popular? But
yeah. Gates is not popular at all, but I would tell
Jack
you
Stack's pretty good.
Jack Stack's pretty popular. Yeah. Joe's is pretty popular. I mean, it's pretty much that trifecta of Q39, Joe's.
I need to go to Joe's.
And Jack Stack.
Never
been to Joe's?
No.
Are you out here? Aren't you out south?
Yeah.
You live out south? Yeah, there's one in Olathe.
Okay.
So let's go
check
there.
it out after prep.
They're like a great lunch spot, yeah. But let's say, you know, it's always more fun when you're talking to somebody who's in bodybuilding. So when you're getting at the end of a prep, right, and it's show day, and all the treats are there, you know, what is the first thing you're grabbing? You've had 37 post-show meals.
Yes.
Give us the most memorable.
Oh, the most memorable cheat meal? Ooh, there was this. So I'm a big ice cream person. I could eat it for every meal of the day. Thank God for the Ninja Creamy with the level 1.
No doubt. No doubt. That was a life change.
It was. Yeah. So I just remember after nationals in Pittsburgh, there was this milkshake place that had like an entire cheesecake inside.
Oh yeah.
It was like, I don't even remember what the.
Did you know this just opened in Kansas City? What you're talking about?
Okay. What is it called? I don't
Yard.
Yes.
Is it called like?
It's not Yard Bar. It's
Milk Yard or like something.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Yard.
I think
Shake
it was
that
because it had different. It was different concoctions and things like that.
I'll find this name. You keep going though. Sorry.
But
it
I was
had a
excited
whole piece
about
of
the
cheesecake in it.
Yeah, I love cheesecake, and then I love milkshake, so that was a good one.
This is good. I'm gonna find the name of this.
It is something with Yard. I know that.
I have heard some like crazy, almost horrific, like rebound, like post show stories.
Dude, Kyle had one, man. Kyle gained. You talk about you gained 15 pounds after your first show. Kyle gained 34 pounds from Saturday to Tuesday.
Wow.
34 pounds after his first show.
Yeah, I couldn't even see my ankles.
We used to have an IFBB pro work for us. His name was Maroff. His last show, he had a 70-pound rebound. I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was just talking about one day. Yeah, that's what it looks
It's
like.
literally
the
just
shake
called
bar.
the Shake Bar.
Shake
Wasn't
bar.
even close.
There is
Yeah,
one that
there's-
has yard though in the word.
It's so over the top, man. Like, you know what's funny? So my wife and I were with our daughter, and we're trying out. We usually wanted to go get ice cream on a Sunday night, and so we're going and figuring, well, maybe we'll go to Betty Ray's, maybe we'll go to Andy's. Like, no, let's try that new milkshake bar or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's in Power and Light. So we go try it out. We park our car, which is a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah.
You get all the way up there, walk in. There's nobody in line, not a soul.
Okay.
Like, heck yeah, walk right up.
Yeah.
I'll get this, she'll get this, and Addie will have that, my little girl. And they go,
My daughter's Addie.
oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, yeah, we can get that going for you. It'll be like 45 minutes.
Whoa.
And we're like, wait, what? And all of these people that are not in line are just standing there holding their receipts because of how elegant these milkshakes are. And these people are like, that they just opened. They're like brand new. I'm like, man, this is a terrible business model.
It's like pre-make something.
like to be clear, it's like a milkshake that doesn't have any crap around the outside of it. It's pretty damn good. So to like make me wait 45 minutes to so I can like scrape the dessert off the side of my jar.
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, well, this isn't going to be in business very long.
Did you wait?
No. No. You know what we did? We went to Cosentino's a block away and just picked something out, like a pint of Betty Ray's out of the freezer. And we're like, this is good.
All right.
So yeah, milkshake bar going. It's not so busy, I guess.
Okay.
All
Good
right.
to know.
Amy, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing what you do with the industry, with how much you put into the sport. It's awesome that we have people that champion the sport like you do. And so please don't change and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much having me on.
How can people find you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is my full name. So AMYEHINGER, Amy Ehinger. And if you want to find us on Instagram, our team is Glam Girl Bikini. If you want to find the podcast, it's at Prep Life Podcasts. We are on YouTube for our episodes for that. And you can go to glamgirlbikini.com. And if you want to fill out that application to set up a phone chat, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the Get Started button. So
If you want to win, reach out to Amy.
yeah,
Thanks so
if
much
you
for
want your
having me.
uniform prepared.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.